wasn't looking for giants when I started this investigation. I was researching architectural anomalies, doorways too tall, staircases too grand, furniture scaled beyond human proportion, standard historical curiosities, the kind of thing you file away as decorative excess or ceremonial design and move on. But then I found the photographs. Not paintings, not myths, not folklore passed down through generations of embellishment. Photographs. Actual photographic evidence from the mid to late 1800s showing human beings of impossible scale, standing next to regular-sized people. Their proportions so dramatic they seemed like composites, except they weren't composites. The grain matched, the lighting matched, the shadows fell correctly. These images predated the technology to fake them convincingly, and that's when the official explanations began to collapse. The deeper I went, the more photographs I uncovered. Cartes de visite from the 1860s, cabinet cards from the 1870s, tintype images showing men, and occasionally women, standing 8, sometimes 10 feet tall. Not circus performers advertised as such, not showmen with documented names and traveling routes. Just people, individuals photographed in formal settings wearing period-appropriate clothing, sometimes surrounded by family members of normal height. The British Museum archives contain several. The Smithsonian mentions them in passing, then dismisses them as medical anomalies without further investigation. French collections show similar images, catalogued and filed away. Russian Imperial records reference persons of unusual stature, serving in ceremonial roles, always the same pattern. Acknowledge, categorize, move on. Never investigate, never ask why were there so many? Why do the photographs cluster in specific decades, primarily between 1850 and 1900, then suddenly disappear? Why do contemporary accounts describe these individuals not as freaks or oddities, but as normal members of society holding positions of authority, working as guards, overseers, foremen of construction projects? And here's the strangest part. Many of these photographs show the giants standing in front of buildings, massive buildings, buildings with doorways that seem absurdly oversized for normal humans, but perfectly proportioned for the individuals pictured. Buildings we've been told were designed for grandeur or intimidation. Buildings that suddenly make sense when you place a 9-foot-tall human being in the frame. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. I started measuring doorways in government buildings from the 1700s and 1800s, 12 to 15 feet high, not at the entrance, inside. In working corridors where grandeur serves no purpose. Staircases with risers so tall a normal person must stretch to climb them comfortably. Furniture, desks, chairs, beds found in estate sales and museums, all slightly too large, all dismissed as decorative or custom-made for tall individuals. But it's not just one building, it's thousands. Courthouses across America, administrative buildings throughout Europe, government complexes in Russia, India, South America, all built in the same period, all featuring the same oversized proportions, all supposedly designed this way for aesthetic reasons, despite the obvious impracticality, despite the added cost, despite the fact that it makes no functional sense, unless the people using them weren't average height. The Tweed Courthouse in New York, completed in 1881, 28-foot ceilings in the working rooms, an 85-foot rotunda. Critics at the time called it wasteful, gaudy, unnecessary. Standard interior doors today measure 6 feet 8 inches. The doors in the Tweed Courthouse working corridors stand over 12 feet. Why? The National Archives building in Washington, designed in the 1930s. Bronze doors standing 38 feet tall, weighing 6.5 tons each. The architect said it was to reflect the building's national significance. But look at the interior doorways, the ones the public never sees. Administrative corridors with 14-foot doors, office spaces with ceilings 20 feet high, filing rooms with shelves requiring ladders to access the upper levels. Not because of storage capacity, but because the proportions demand it. Victorian townhouses in Paris and London. The Haussmannian-era buildings of mid-1800s Paris featured entrance doors often exceeding 10 feet in height. Georgian-era London townhouses from the early 19th century showed the same pattern. Historians attribute this to wealth display, status symbols for the elite. But these weren't just grand entrances. The interior doors matched the scale. Bedrooms, private studies, servants' quarters, all featuring doorways 8 to 10 feet tall, with furniture scaled accordingly. St. Petersburg. Government buildings, from the 1700s and 1800s, with corridor doorways reaching 12 feet. Staircase risers measuring 10 to 12 inches in height, when standard risers measure 7 to 8. The Winter Palace, completed in 1762, features interior doorways and administrative wings standing 11 feet tall. Not ceremonial spaces, working offices. I examined court records from Texas County courthouses built between 1870 and 1900. Specifications called for second-story courtrooms, with ceilings 2 stories in height. The Parker County Courthouse, built in 1885, features a main courtroom with a ceiling height exceeding 30 feet. Standard explanation: improved acoustics and ventilation. But the judges' chambers, the jury rooms, the administrative offices, all measured proportionally. Doorways, 11 feet tall. Desks with working surfaces 34 inches high when standard desk height is 29 inches. The pattern extends beyond government buildings. Railroad stations from the same era. Grand Central Terminal in New York, completed in 1913, features main concourse windows standing 60 feet tall. The official explanation: architectural ambition, creating a sense of grandeur for travelers. But examine the original administrative offices, the stationmaster's quarters, the railway operational rooms, doorways 10 to 12 feet, office furniture scaled larger. Even the original lockers for railway workers measured proportionally larger than necessary. European churches and cathedrals from the medieval period through the Renaissance featured massive doors and towering ceilings, explained as reaching toward heaven, inspiring awe in congregants. But look at the presbytery, the vestries, the chapter houses where clergy worked. Doorways 8 to 10 feet tall. Furniture, particularly chairs and desks, built to proportions exceeding normal human scale. The Bishop's Palace in Wells, England, built in the 13th century, contains residential chambers with doorways 9 feet tall and furniture that requires modern visitors to climb to use comfortably. I started collecting measurements. Government buildings, courthouses, administrative centers, residential estates across 3 continents, all constructed primarily between 1650 and 1900, all showing the same pattern. Interior working spaces with doorways 8 to 15 feet tall, staircases with riser heights 10 to 12 inches, furniture scaled 15 to 20% larger than modern standard dimensions, ceiling heights in working rooms, not ceremonial, spaces ranging from 14 to 28 feet. The architectural historians I consulted provided standard explanations: aesthetic choices, display of wealth and power, improved air circulation in pre-electrical era, accommodation for elaborate clothing and headwear, building techniques of the period favoring taller structures, regional variations in construction standards. But none of these explanations account for the consistency. Buildings across vastly different cultures, climates, and construction traditions, all featuring the same proportional scaling, all built in the same concentrated time period, all featuring interior working spaces unnecessarily large for average humans. And then there are the photographs, the ones showing individuals of extraordinary height standing comfortably in these spaces, their heads clearing doorways that tower over normal people, their scale matching the furniture, the staircases, the architectural proportions perfectly. I found references in city records, employment documents from the late 1800s listing positions for building guards, specifying minimum height requirements of 7.5 to 8 feet, construction records from major projects in New York, London, Paris, St. Petersburg, all mentioning foremen and overseers of unusual stature. Census records from the 1870s and 1880s listing individuals with recorded heights exceeding 7 feet, employed in positions of authority, living in residential areas, not traveling shows or medical exhibits. The Smithsonian Institution has In its archived collections, photographs and skeletal remains of individuals exceeding 7.5 feet in height, documented as recovered from archaeological sites across North America and cataloged in the late 1800s and early 1900s. These are rarely displayed. Filed under anthropological curiosities, mentioned briefly in internal documents, never featured in public exhibitions. Military records from European armies in the 1700s and 1800s reference elite guard units with minimum height requirements of 6 feet 6 inches to 7 feet. The Russian Imperial Guard, the Prussian Grenadiers, the French Garde Républicaine, all maintained units of exceptionally tall soldiers. But photographs from the era show these weren't just tall men. By modern standards, they were proportionally different skeletal structures suggesting not just height but different fundamental proportions. I examined furniture auction records from estate sales across Europe and America. Items listed as oversized, custom-made, unusually proportioned. Beds measuring 8 to 9 feet in length, chairs with seat heights 20 to 22 inches, 4 to 6 inches higher than standard. Desks with working surfaces 32 to 36 inches high, all dismissed as commission pieces for wealthy individuals who preferred unusual dimensions. But the volume of such items, concentrated in the same time period, all following the same proportional scaling, suggests something beyond individual preference. Then, around 1900, something changed. Photographs of individuals exceeding 8 feet in height ceased appearing in formal portrait collections. Employment records stopped listing height requirements exceeding normal human ranges. Architecture shifted toward standardized proportions matching average human scale. Building codes began specifying maximum ceiling heights and standardized door dimensions for efficiency and cost savings. The transition happened rapidly. Between 1890 and 1920, the architectural proportions that had dominated construction for centuries gave way to standardized measurements optimized for humans between 5 and 6 feet tall. Older buildings were modified, doorways reduced, ceilings lowered, furniture replaced with standard-sized equivalents, and the photographs disappeared. Not destroyed, not overtly censored, simply reclassified. Filed under medical anomalies, moved to archive collections, removed from public display, mentioned only in passing in historical records. The individuals pictured, the ones standing 8, 9, 10 feet tall in formal portraits from the 1860s through 1890s, were retrospectively classified as suffering from gigantism, acromegaly, pituitary disorders. But medical gigantism produces specific physical characteristics: disproportionate limb length, distinctive facial features, mobility issues, shortened lifespan. The individuals in these photographs show none of these traits. They appear proportionally scaled, healthy, active, employed in positions requiring physical capability. I'm not suggesting impossible conclusions. I'm observing patterns, architectural proportions that served no obvious purpose for average-sized humans. Photographic evidence of individuals whose physical scale matched those proportions. Employment records, census data, military documents, all referencing people of unusual height serving in normal societal roles. Then, in a concentrated period around the turn of the 20th century, all of it systematically reclassified, archived, or explained away. The buildings remain. You can visit them, measure the doorways, climb the staircases, examine the furniture in museum collections. The photographs exist in archives, available for those who know where to look and what to request. The records are there, in city halls, military archives, institutional collections. But the questions remain unanswered. Why were so many buildings across different continents and cultures designed with proportions exceeding human scale? Why do photographs from a specific historical period show individuals whose height matched those proportions? Why did both the architecture and the photographic evidence of unusual stature disappear in the same concentrated time frame? And why has the pattern been so thoroughly dismissed, categorized, and filed away without serious investigation? I started this looking for architectural curiosities. I found buildings designed for people who weren't there, except the photographs suggest they were there. The employment records indicate they worked there. The furniture proves they lived there, and then, within a single generation, they were gone. And the buildings were modified to fit those who remained. The evidence hasn't disappeared. It's been reclassified. The photographs are filed under medical anomalies. The buildings are explained as aesthetic choices. The employment records are dismissed as clerical errors or misunderstandings of measurement systems. The furniture is labeled as decorative excess. But when you examine all of it together, when you measure the buildings and match the proportions to the photographs, when you read the employment records and compare them to the architectural specifications, when you see the same pattern repeated across continents and centuries, suddenly focused in one specific time period, then abruptly altered and explained away, you're left with a question that demands to be asked even if the answer remains elusive. Were these buildings designed for us or for them? And if for them, where did they go? And why does no one want to remember they were here?